All right. I'm going to wander around for a minute here to try and make a point that I think is worth making. But I think to make it as well as I can, I'm going to use some stories, some background to make it more personal. I grew up in the Valley. I am from the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. You guys know that. I was born in San Benito, and I am proud to say so was Charley Crockett, one of my favorite artists right now. And he has a song about the Valley. And on his live album, before he sings that song, he has this line: sometimes if you are going to make something of yourself, you have to wander a long way from home. And I very much identify with Charley in that song. Growing up in the Valley, as I was growing up, I sought out jobs, even as a young age. And what I did, I sought out jobs to toughen myself up. But I say that with the fact that even as I've become an adult, what I view puts under the umbrella of tough has changed. But in high school and even in junior high, I worked at a material yard. I worked at a horse stables. During college, I worked as a backpack guide in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Before I went to college, I worked as a welder. After college, briefly, I worked as a logger in Oregon. And I sought out these kind of jobs because I wanted jobs that were going to toughen me up. And I say that because even early in life, I was a history buff. And I had what I would consider a healthy respect for the previous generations and people that I think have done tough things and been tough people. And when I say that, I don't just mean physically tough especially. That kind of toughness is the easiest to attain and easiest to identify. I'm talking about stick-to-itiveness, resiliency, being able to admit when you're wrong, being able to admit when you're embarrassed, emotional toughness, mental toughness. But anyways, when I was doing those jobs, I was often low man on the totem pole. I was the guy that got made fun of. I was put in embarrassing situations. I was at the bottom of the social food chain. And I thought that was good for me even back then, because I thought it made me tougher. And as you guys know, when I'm scared of something, I will tend to seek it out. Being scared of heights, skydiving, cliff jumping. Early in life, I was scared of public speaking, which I know is the most common fear for all of us, and yet here I am talking to you. I, even early on in life, would seek out chances. If there was a chance to public speak, I wouldn't shy away from it because I knew it was going to make me nervous. And now I really enjoy doing this, which is probably the modern version of that. So I say all that with the fact that there's the obvious forms of toughness, and then there are those emotional, relational, mental kinds of toughness that I think are easier to spot. And my standard for myself in all these categories, I continue to raise. When I was young and in those positions and put in positions of embarrassment, like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it. And now, I think being able to be what I would call disarmingly honest about the fact, hey, that was embarrassing to me, I think that's a hard thing for people to do, and I think shows a tremendous amount of strength. And it is so something I aspire to have. And when I hear things like, when I hear these comments, oh, I don't care, or that's fine, or whatever, doesn't matter. Guys, those are all giveaways of what I would call emotional weakness. Whether it's you're protecting yourself or you're not willing to admit to the person you're engaging with at the time, you can't admit what's really going on with you. And I think that is a form of self-protection. It's very common, and we're all going to do it, but that is a form of weakness, and I aspire to be tougher than that in situations relationally. And where am I going though with this? When Janelle and I got married, one of the things I talked to her about having a philosophy in life, I had a standard for myself. And I seek to keep raising that standard. And guys, I don't live up to it. I don't work as hard as I should. I'm not as self-disciplined as I should be. I'm not as honest as I should be. These are shortcomings I have, and I'm working towards them and trying to live up to them. But I don't. But it is still a standard I aspire to. And with Janelle, one of the things is, in general, I think a lot of people, all of us, struggle with admitting when we're wrong, especially in an argument, when we're arguing with someone, arguing with our spouse. And I think that is a noteworthy skill to have. And in fact, I think that is one of those critical moments when you can admit you're wrong, that you just got better as a person. Now, that's not admitting you're wrong just to end the argument because you're tired of it. That's not it. And I think Janelle would tell you, and I think any of you guys that have had a discussion with me on something where we differed in opinion, if I don't think I'm wrong, I'm not going to say I'm wrong. I think Janelle will confirm that. However, in the heat of the moment, if you can admit you're wrong, that's actually one of those rare opportunities to get better as a person, to level up, because you just learned something. I think of it just the other day, Janelle and I were having a disagreement in the kitchen. And I think we've gotten to this point because both of us have been able, when we're not arguing, talk about how we'd like to handle it when we are. And then in that moment, one of us will be able to do it and the other one will realize that's what they're doing. Because again, we all know this, guys. If I win the argument, but we grow further apart, we both lost in that relational situation. If we resolve the conflict, that brought us closer together. We're living a happier life, you're winning. But that isn't just by conceding. So it's being honest in that moment too. And that's a continual balance that sometimes you get right and most of the time you don't. Janelle and I were having a discussion. She says something to me and there was a long pause. And I could tell I could have been going to one of two ways. And that's what she asked me. She's like, are you planning your next comeback? Which I could have been, because if I didn't think I was wrong, I could have been like, oh, I need to attack this from a different way. But it was one of those moments where she said something and I was like, well, shit. And in that moment, I was formulating, well, based on the fact that now I think she might be right, how do we move forward this in a different way? So I was having to change my train of thought. And I bring that up to you because I remember it, because it is one of those moments. I'm like, all right, I'm living up to the standard I have for myself. I'm putting into practice something that I think is useful to put into practice. So why do I say all that? Why am I talking about how I toughen myself up with the job and I seek out things I'm scared of and I'm getting better at having discussions with my wife? I have a standard for myself and I am at the same time not better than anybody. I'm not. I can learn something from everyone, and I told Janelle that I have one standard for me and a different standard for everybody else in life. And that doesn't mean it's lower. It means it is different. One of the things I find the most unlikable traits in people, frankly, guys, if you know me, you know this, is judgmentalism. To being judgmental about people. It really bothers me. And I am guilty of it. I think we are all guilty of it at times. And I think it is one of the ultimate mental forms of gluttony and laziness. It is a way of giving ourselves a pat on the back when we didn't do anything, because we are holding other people to a standard they don't know they're being held to, because it's our standard for them and they're not living up to it, and we get jollies off that. I have to say that I just think it's a toxic mindset, and it is something we are all very subject to. So I say that with the fact that I think you do need to have a high bar for yourself, the highest bar, a high bar that you have a lot of trouble even tapping into occasionally, and yet do not apply that to the world. Now, obviously, guys, that's different than if you have employees and children and there are performance and behavior standards. You're making them better people by holding them to that. So that is different. And it's not even telling people they're perfect the way they are, because they're definitely not. It is seeing potential in people and knowing they can live up to that potential. It is not saying you're a wonderful, perfect little human being. You're definitely not. You're very flawed. But it is just, you have a behavior and a life standard for you, and you need to have that, and it doesn't apply to anybody else. And you wasting time putting energy into getting jollies off the fact that you're better than this person or that person by the standard they don't know they're being measured to is really lazy. Marcus Aurelius. So why have I said all this? Because Janelle found the quote from Marcus Aurelius, and as usual, he said things a lot better than I say them. And his line was, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. So guys, that's why I've said all of this. That's why I've told all these stories. Janelle, admitting I'm wrong, Heights, Charley Crockett. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. All right, enough of that. How are we using the devil's details for this week? Short and sweet here at the end. Last week was a long time ago. We were all different people back then. We did not do a normal strength day, if you remember. We did that Hero Wad Andy last week. So we actually did 2 chippers last week, which is unusual. We only do 3 to 4 chippers in a month. So the fact that we did 2 in 1 week is highly unusual. We still did the back squats on Wednesday, so we got in some strength. But that is why, if you're thinking through this week so far, we've already essentially had 2 strength days. Yesterday was our lunges. Today with the bench and the dips, very much a strength stamina day. I'm doing that because in the context of coming out of last week, I felt like we had room for that. Also, because we did 2 chippers and we had the strength day back squats on Wednesday, we didn't get as many couplets in. And if you guys, going back to Devil's Details 5, where I talk about couplets, chippers, triplets, couplets are the fire in which our fitness is forged. That is where we make our fitness, is in doing couplets, 2 movements switching back and forth. All the others, the EMOMs, the strength days, all this is good, but our fitness is forged in the fire of couplets. And so this week we have 4 of those because I didn't feel like we got in as many last week. So this week was kind of a get back on track. We had a gap week in between our strength cycles, starting a new strength cycle and getting back into the swing of things with couplets. So go back and look at Devil's Details 1 or Devil's Details 5 and you'll see me expound much more on those 2. But I just wanted to explain kind of how they're being applied in this week. Right on, guys. I'll talk to you later.